Good morning, all the colleagues joined from the different parts of India. And I take this opportunity to thank Institute of Food Science and Technology here in Bangalore. Thank you, Arun, for this introduction. This is indeed great pleasure to start with talking about biodiversity policies in utilizing and developing forest genetic resources, covering especially in India. I'll be basically covering one important policy on biodiversity, with which the India is signatories. And since most of these policies are, people feel that it is very dry to understand, I would like to give a couple of examples to start with. Then I'll go into the details of what kind of policies the government of India is actually taken up and relevant to bioresources and biodiversity. And later I will also talk a little bit with some examples. To begin with, I'll take, since Olympics is on the corner, I would like to talk a little bit on how the Olympics and biodiversity matters. The first example I would like to take from example I would like to take on the bioresources and billion-dollar pharma industries, how they are linked together. The first example is on the Naoka Takahashi, who has won the women's marathon in Olympics 2000 in Sydney, and how this is connected to the biodiversity. I just wanted to briefly explain. Most of us know that there's a hornet, which is widely available in the countryside of Japan. This particular wasp is being used to prepare the amino acid mixture, basically using this wasp. As most of us know, the hornets are a delicacy in the countryside of Japan. This particular liquid, which is prepared out of this wasp, which was used by this athlete, this is a secret which actually reduced the fatigue in muscles for this athlete and leading to winning the medal there. Coming to the second example, most of us know that we are already in the midst of the pandemic that is happening since last 1.5 years. One such pandemic was the swine flu, which was in 2009. This also spread across various parts of the world, and this influenza was difficult to control. What was used to control was a drug called Tamiflu, which used ashikmic acid, which is basically derived from Chinese star anise. The pictures are kept here on the right hand side. What makes us think about these two examples is how important bioresources are for our life. Coming to the next example, our own Indian athlete PV Sindhu has also won 2 medals for India. Prior to arrival into Tokyo, she also has gone with the diet and nutrition assessments in UK. So the diet and nutrition means this has to come from bioresources and different other resources what different sport persons use. The next example, we have an MOU recently with the United Kingdom, basically to test ashwagandha for COVID-19 recovery. This is currently being tested among 2,000 people in three cities of UK, that is Leicester, Birmingham, and London. This is basically to ensure that how COVID recovery could be achieved through ashwagandha. MOU has been signed between Ministry of Ayush and UK's London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine. Coming to the next example of bioresources use, if I just look at this, like most of the mining exercises are destructive in nature. In order to ensure that how we can minimize this particular destruction, one example is about eucalyptus trees can reveal deposits deep underground. This was actually mentioned in Smithsonian magazine. Basically, the roots transport the gold which is present in the soil, and it may be absorbed in their roots, the transport system, as well as in the leaves. This basically reduces in terms of exploration studies that is being carried out by the miners. Looking at our own back home in India, Ayurvedic manufacturing is roughly about size of about 10,000 crores industry in India. If you look at one simple example of Brahmi Saraswati Leha, which is basically manufactured in Andhra Pradesh by a company called the Ayurvedic drug manufacturing company, uses two different medicinal plants, Bacopa monnieri and Centella sciatica. They use other different ingredients to prepare a Brahmi Saraswati Leha. If we look at the price of this particular bioresource at the time of procurement, 60 to 80 rupees, the moment it becomes a final product, the value will be increased to 409 rupees per kg. These are the few examples I wanted to share with you before I move into the what actually the policies India has adopted in terms of regulating these bioresources. Another important example I wanted to talk at this point of time is fish and surgical sutures. So the Central Institute of Fisheries Technology based in Kochi has developed and also got a patent to manufacture operation sutures using the fish gut. At the market, basically, most of us know that earlier days, people used to go for twice to the operation table, basically to once to stitch, another time to remove the stitches. But this example, what I am giving you here is, these sutures are absorbable sutures, which are used at the operation table. Why I am giving this particular example is that the market rate, which is available for operation sutures, which are enough to absorb after the operation is complete. These are the resources which are being used. This particular gut is sold for 4 to 5 sutures, which will be from 1 kg of fish, which is coming, which will cost about 2,500 to 3,000 rupees. Unfortunately, there are many competitors to sell the absorbable sutures. This has not got popularized in India because the Johnson & Johnson is a major player in India in terms of selling these sutures in India. So at this point of time, I just wanted to stop here on some examples and take you through what kind of policies we have in India on this. As most of us know, the Ministry of Environment and Forest deals with variety of subjects relevant to the biological diversity, and the nodal agency that deals with the bioresources is the National Biodiversity Authority. During some time in 1992, the Convention on Biological Diversity, which is a legal binding treaty, which was entered by India. At the moment, more than 196 countries are party to this particular treaty. We also have another protocol called Cartagena Protocol, basically talks about biosafety in order to ensure that safe entry of these bioresources in any country. Subsequently, we have other protocols, and we also have improvements once after the signature of these protocols happened. So in the year 2010, the Nagoya Protocol on access and benefit sharing came into force. India also ratified this particular protocol. Ratification means what? Each country, once it becomes a party, to ratify, they need to prepare and install the institutions to regulate bioresources. That is when they can ratify the Biological Diversity Convention Treaty, what has been entered into. What are the major objectives of this particular either you can call a convention or the Biological Diversity Act? We have been talking about Biological Diversity Act, which is one of the important act which has been enacted by Indian Parliament in 2002, and subsequently is an authority which was established in 2003 at the Chennai, with the basic objective of what convention had, and the act also has a similar type of objectives. The one important objective is the conservation, its sustainable use, fair and equitable of sharing of benefits arising out of use of these bioresources. Why this act has been actually enacted? It's basically to claim the sovereign rights on the biological resources that is available or occurring in Indian jurisdiction. Stop misappropriation of biological resources. I will also give some examples on these resources, how they get misappropriated or biopiracy, how we can actually do that process. To regulate access means basically majority of the Indian industries as well as foreign industries come into India for access of biological resources. I will also give a couple of examples on this as we go. So this is basically regulates those uses. Then it also regulates the associated knowledge with the biological resources, ensures its sustainable use, and also provides the legal recognition to support the biological resources and associated traditional knowledge with the communities. What is the institutional structure if we look at? We have administering bodies, the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change, Government of India. National Biodiversity Authority is the body which basically regulates at the national level, at apex level. This body also regulates the use of biological resources, rather access of biological resources by both Indian as well as non-Indian entities. State biodiversity boards. Now we have state biodiversity boards in all Indian states. We also have a biodiversity councils in the union territories of India. At the lowest tier of this particular management, we have a biodiversity management committees. These are the committees which are established by the local bodies. Local bodies are what? Basically the corporations, municipalities, then the panchayats. These are the local bodies who basically establish biological diversity committee, biodiversity management committees at the local body level. What NBA does? NBA does is basically it does the facilitative role, regulatory role, and advises to the central government on the regulation aspects related to the bioresources. What it basically covers, the Act's basic objectives. Similarly, the state government does at the provincial level, the management related activities. So what we also do? We also do oppose grant of any intellectual property rights in any country outside India if it is illegally taken out of India, whether it is a biological resource or its knowledge associated with India. As I told, a couple of examples I'll give. I'll now start giving a couple of examples in terms of what will happen in different biological resources cases. Especially, say for example, we have been using the Bengal gram powder in order to ensure that complexity of the skin. In India, it's a very popular practice. What happened was some time ago, the companies, the corporate companies which are in the cosmetics, basically wanted to test whether it is good enough that Bengal gram powder is really having some effect on the skin complexity. They wanted to procure Bengal gram from India and try to test, and later if the knowledge which is available in India is proved to be good enough that it can be used, they can make some creams and sell all over the globe. This is one simple example which I would like to give here, how the intellectual property right on the biological resource exists in India. This is one example. Another example is if we also have a few more examples in terms of how it is illegally going from India. Coming to the guidance and technical support, the biological diversity management committees are basically involved in a couple of things. They are actually mandated to manage the bioresources at their jurisdiction. They also are required to give the consent for access of bioresources available in their jurisdiction. They also prepare a document called People Biodiversity Register. This is basically a register which contains both bioresources occurring in that jurisdiction as well as knowledge associated with these bioresources in that document. This document remains legally binding. It can stand before even the court of law when the controversies appear on the resources. Coming to what kind of applications basically we process at the national level as well as the state level. I just wanted to share some of these things. One is the Form 1 basically talks about access to biological resources, associated traditional knowledge, commercial utilization, biosphere, bioutilization. This is by whom? Basically, non-Indian, non-resident Indians, foreign entity, Indian entity can take Indian bioresources with proper application process, which is now available online. They can apply online and take the permission from National Biodiversity Authority on this. While doing this process, basically the company which is doing a commercial utilization of bioresources, they are supposed to share the benefits arising out of that commercial utilization with the state National Biodiversity Fund based at the National Biodiversity Authority. This is one aspect. The second one is the transfer of research results. Any Indian entity or foreign entity wanted to do some transfer of research, that is research technology, whatever that is getting developed using the Indian bioresources, they need to obtain permission for transferring the research results associated with bioresources. In case of non-Indian entities or non-Indian residents, they are supposed to take permission from National Biodiversity Authority prior to even start the research. For Indian researchers, it is exempted. I will also talk a little bit on the exemptions, what is available. We also talk a little bit on the intellectual property rights. Any Indian, non-Indian entity, it is mandatory that before they apply for intellectual property rights, they need to obtain permission from National Biodiversity Authority and respective state biodiversity boards whenever such kind of access of bioresource happens, and they are wanting to claim intellectual property on the technology for the use of these bioresources. The fourth one is basically on the transfer of biological resources. Knowledge already exists. Any person, I have given Bengal gram example, any person who is accessing bioresources and associated knowledge like Bengal gram and skin complexity is the knowledge. If it is going to be transferred or required to be transferred, appropriate permission is again required, and there is an proper processes required to process these applications also. When we come to the state biodiversity boards are basically carrying out the similar activities what is happening at the national level, whereas the National Biodiversity Authority covers all non-Indians as well as Indians on other three applications. The State Biodiversity Board basically covers all Indian entities who are accessing bioresources for commercial utilization purposes. And they also facilitate establishment of biodiversity management committees, as well as they regulate the use of bioresources at the state level. And they're also required to make the document called their own rules. It's called state biodiversity rules, which is passed to their individual cabinets. Coming to the functions of biodiversity management committees, as I mentioned earlier, they are the local bodies who are custodians of bioresources in their jurisdiction. Hence, they will be involved in conservation of those resources, utilization of those resources, as well as giving consent to access of these bioresources. Any entity which is accessing bioresources in their own jurisdiction, they can levy fee. Say, for example, 1 kg of medicinal plant is going to be taken from jurisdiction of a BMC area. They can charge, say that per kg you can deposit 10 rupees, 20 rupees, whatever that is decided by based on the value and the demand of that particular bioresource that is available in that area. They are also required to prepare a People's Biodiversity Register. Then the maintained register about the details of showing bioresources accessed, fees imposed, benefits accrued at the local level, and also support NB and SBB in their decisions. How it happens basically. When an industry or a researcher applies for access of bioresources, ultimately from NBA it goes to state biodiversity boards, the request, then the state biodiversity boards in turn around with the talk with biodiversity management committees, consult with them and access this particular consent from them based on its availability and rarity. Basically, if it is scarce in nature, probably they may even deny. All those issues are there. Those things are decisions are taken by the biodiversity management committees. So what will happen? Like what kind of roles the governments do in this process? Basically, the national governments are basically involved in establishment of the authorities at the national level, state level, biodiversity management committee level, and develop national strategies, plans, programs for biodiversity, issue directives to the state government, integration of conservation and promotion of sustainable use of bioresources, assess the impacts of projects on environment and biodiversity. This also is done, and biosafety concerns. As we know that we are now facing the problem of escape of the virus from one country to the other, and it has become global pandemic now. So the central government may, in consultation with NBA, notify threatened species, designate repositories. We do have repositories already in India. They're all associated with Indian Council of Agriculture Research, and they're all called the repositories. It could be Animal Bureau, Plant Bureau. They're all repositories for this. Whenever a material going out of India, it is required that the repository of that sample has to be kept with these repositories, and exempt certain biological resources as normally traded commodities. I will just give an example of ginger here. Most of us are very familiar with masala chai. When we prepare a masala chai, we have a ginger added to the chai. Then, if that is the use, which is as a commodity, or it's a spice that is being used in the kitchen. If ginger is used to extract gingerol, and that chemical is used for the purpose of preparing the cough syrup called honeytol by Dabur, that is not a normally traded commodity in that case. This is very clear. So we know that what is normally traded. If we use ginger for spice, yes, it is normal trade. If the ginger is used for gingerol production and then the drug, then it will be different use. So this is what it's called normally trade commodities. This is done under section 40, and it is based on the usage. We make the list, and it will get notified by the Government of India through due diligence. They also established the biodiversity heritage sites. We do have a couple of biodiversity heritage sites in Bangalore. We have on the GKVK campus. We also have one on the Nallur Tamarind Group, which is present very close to the Devanahalli Airport in Bangalore. So like this, we have other biodiversity heritage sites which is notified under the Biodiversity Act. They will become a repository of bioresources of important to national level. Expert committees. The National Biodiversity Authority or the state biodiversity boards are guided by the expert committees set up by the Chairman National Biodiversity Authority. It's basically on access and benefit sharing. This is the committee which is comprised of various experts, right from finances, right to the bioresources, to the management, then the administrators and the technocrats. All are part of this particular committee. Agrobiodiversity, another important area where the agrobiodiversity is getting regulated. Then medicinal plants, training capacity building, biodiversity management committees, normal traded commodities, very important committee. In the red centers, the high value bioresources which are traded in India. There are, as I told most of you here, there are biodiversity heritage sites notified under the section 37, under section 38. We also have to define which are the threatened species so that we cannot just get involved in the access of those resources, which are very important in terms of germplasm that is available in our forests, in our agricultural lands, in our heritage sites, and variety of places. The central government designates institutions and organizations from time to time as repositories. As I told earlier also, there are 15 institutions which are designated. They're basically bureaus of animal resources, plant resources, insect resources. One we have near Hebbar here, which basically does all the resources of the and insects basically. Then there is one institution managed only microbes here. Why microbes? If we mean the soil contains large amount of bioresources basically. So there's one industry, one particular ICR institute called IIOR present in Hyderabad, actually isolated a microbe to prepare a biopesticide. So the technology has been developed around that. Isolation of the microbe has happened. Now the technology is patented and it is getting regulated. Now the technology has been transferred to 4 different companies present in Maharashtra, basically to manufacture the large scale biopesticide. And that pesticide manufacturing is covering more than 100 crore industry. So the benefit sharing goes with the percentage of that part that goes into the industry. So the benefits arising out of this bioresource will come to the either state biodiversity fund or the national biodiversity fund, and they will be get used to the conservation of those locations where these bioresources are accessed. These are all the different stakeholders guidelines which have developed at the national level. These are all the different dates and the different times when they have been developed. And one of the important last one which I would like to talk about is the exempting the Annex 1 crops. What is Annex 1? Annex 1 crops are basically, there are a number of crops that has been listed, which are very important for the survival of humanity across the globe. These crops have been listed and they are exempted under the exchange of these materials under the biological resources. They are all covered under the section 3 and 4 of the Biological Diversity Act. Then there are also committees. I have given a lot of examples on normal trade commodities, which is very important again, and the other groups here. This is the simple process, how they actually apply. I have also explained. Once either an Indian or non-Indian, when they apply, based on their jurisdictions, either they apply at National Biodiversity Authority or the state biodiversity boards. The application comes into the Biodiversity Authority, then the scrutiny happens technically, then it comes legal scrutiny happens, then it appears before the Access and Benefit Sharing Committee. Then we permit them whether it could go or not. Then then subsequently these things go into the processes. And we also have very close monitoring or also association with the Indian Patent Office, where the applications come to the patent. They also seek the permission of either National Biodiversity Authority before they gets into the permissions. Then we also have after this process, we also share the information in the ABS clearinghouse, which is after the internationally recognized certificates are given at the international level also. I will also share a little bit on the user measures. User measures, basically, there are 2 ways basically. We take material from outside also for our benefit, and we also give out our material outside. When the outside country actually takes our material, say for example, there is a scientist based in US wanted to take a molecule from baobab tree, which is based in Golconda area of Hyderabad. And this molecule is basically used for the purpose for nuclear sciences. And why baobab tree? If we ask this question, the baobab tree is basically survives more than 150 years. There are very few trees across the globe, few in Africa, few in Asia, that is in India, in Golconda area of Hyderabad, they are available. And the molecules are getting sourced from different parts of the world to have some applications in the nuclear sciences. So the scientists from nuclear sciences applied with National Biodiversity Authority for the access of the molecule. Then fair and equitable sharing. So this is very important aspect of this policy of the government, and whatever that is getting shared by the providers. Who are the providers? The local communities who are actually managing these bioresources in different parts of India, based on the threat levels, threat perceptions, and things like that. And they decide on it. And based on that, there's a percentage of that is being paid back to the things. Guidelines. This basically gives the legal certainty, clarity, and transparency, simplified procedure to the Indian researchers. If they are involved in the basic research without much commercial intent, then they are exempted here. Then the graded benefit sharing is there. Upfront payment is there for the high value process, high value resources such as sandal and red sandals. The story of sandal is also known to most of us. Karnataka was one of the leading state in India for producing sandal. Earlier, the policy was different, and now the policy is we have sandalwood estates to reduce the foreign exchange getting lost due to import of sandal from oil or sandal from the Australia. Then things have changed now and then, though. So apportioning accrued benefits to the communities and the BMCs, and these are the things ABS basically talks about. This is what is a slab which is available now, and this is still getting upgraded, modified by the Government of India through its notification. We have basically commercial utilization. We have slabs here up to 1 crore, 0.1%, up to 1 to 3 crores, 0.2%, above 3 crores, 0.5% of the benefit sharing is required to be paid to the National Biodiversity Authority at its National Biodiversity Fund. Then intellectual property rights, we have a different slabs here. Himself, applicant himself commercializes, then it will be 0.2 to 1%. And we have many people who have applied on this. Basically, I'll give one simple example. The Pune-based Ayurvedic doctor has actually produced a drug called Pinak, which is using 4 different medicinal plants to produce. The drug basically reduces the chances of death of a patient when the snake bites, and it saves that person for at least 6 hours after drug is administered. This drug is called Pinak, and this is being innovated by an Ayurvedic doctor based in Pune, in Maharashtra. So like that. Then I also talked a little bit on the commercial utilization on the biopesticide by the companies in the Maharashtra earlier. And there are applicant can assign the technology and also earn revenue and royalty. Then there is another percentage that is being required to be paid to the National Biodiversity Fund. Then we also have lots of people who are traders. Large number of people are involved in this supply chain, involved in the as a trader and middlemen and things like that. We have different things for different stakeholders in this particular processes. So then there are also high value producers like red sanders and things like that. There is an upfront payment is required to be made at the National Biodiversity Authority. This is as of 2015. We had so many applications and processing and signing of agreements. This is about 26 crores as of 2015, which was available at the National Biodiversity Fund, and subsequently it will be put into use for the conservation and sustainable use, and the application fee that goes into the online processes. This is an important slide, the exemptions. Local people and community-wise hakims are exempted, basically for the use of traditional practices of medicine, what they are using for the purposes of bioresources for their health and things like that. And the local community free access to use bioresources within India. Then the biological resources normally treated as commodities under Section 40. We have exemptions, as I told you a couple of examples. Say, for example, we are using the ginger. I have given examples. We are using the Bengal gram and things like that. I've given a couple of those examples also. Then it also I'll give one more example where the chilies are used, the oleoresin extracted from chilies, which is quite common in terms of Karnataka. If you consider, there's a place called Badgi where you have a large chili market is available, and the per annum production, the sale market is roughly about 100 to 200 crores in per season, and large amount of chili is procured from here, and large couple of companies actually are involved in producing oleoresin out of this particular chili. It's basically color which comes out of it, and this color is being used in the cosmetic industries outside India, and that is where the intervention is required to come, and we need to take care of that part. And many of us come before the authorities say that my product is value-added product. So I should be exempted. Some people come towards saying that I am using normally traded commodities, so please exempt me, something like that. So I told you also that how it will become normal trade and how it will become applicable to the law. So both examples I have given prior to this. And for research by Indians also it is exempted. This is what I had to share today, and I hope I have made my point clear on the how biodiversity policies are very important in terms of forest genetic resources, not just forest genetic resources, the resources which are important, which are available in every nook and corner of this country, which is regulated under Biological Diversity Act 2002 and Rules 2004. And now we have a large number of institutions available in India who basically cover the cover the regulation aspect, conservation aspects, and its sustainable use, and the fair and equitable sharing of benefits arising out of these resources. So I'll stop here. Now I wish to have a small discussion, if possible. Then now the floor is open for discussion, and I think a couple of us can get involved in discussion here. Basically, Singh sir just mentioned me that I need to give a small take-home message. We have lots of take-home messages from this particular topic. We need to now get on to the business, how it is going to affect us in terms of biological resources, how important they are, whether they are in the forest jurisdictions, wildlife jurisdictions, national parks, wildlife sanctuaries, creeks and crevices, estuaries, many more, I can say. They're all very important for us to regulate. Hence, I conclude my presentation here.